Hi, I'm Greg Stewart, CEO of MMA Global, the international nonprofit trade association for CMOs who are focused on architecting a new future of marketing.
I'm Rex Briggs, an author, market researcher, measurement inventor, and entrepreneur.
Hey, Rex, I don't know if you've kind of seen the pattern. I mean, actually, I know you've seen this pattern, right? That, a lot of startups, marketing organizations are really focused on productivity aspect of how things work when they're trying to leverage AI, right? It's one of the big plays, efficiency in addition to marketing productivity, which you and I have spent a lot of time on. And I think they're using a lot of tools to really create just more processes for their work. Now, behind that, Rex, I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but that's all. A lot of that sort of can start to reflect sort of agent dynamics and really leveraging agents in order to sort of act on behalf and to create that efficiency. Is that what you're seeing out there?
Absolutely. I think the agentic reasoning, as we call it, is the key area. I think there was an assumption that, ChatGPT was the be all end all, and it isn't. It really is, part of a product. But when people take that underlying system and they connect it up with these agents, they can do so much more. And it really has the opportunity to revolutionize so many different workflows in business.
And you also know, Rex, that I'm very obsessed, at least the MMA is obsessed on behalf of our CMO members around sort of customer centricity, customer experience in particular. And my basic thesis today, I mean, it's terrible to say about my members, but it feels as though companies are somehow forced to go out of their way to annoy consumers. and I know it's a terrible thing to say. I don't really think that's what's going on. I mean, all my members, I have big enterprise CMOs. Like we're trying to.
Yeah, but we have really high expectations for these companies to come through, and when they let us down, we get pissed.
Exactly,
really
and or even when I just spend a little bit of money, like they just kind of don't get it. It's just like I think that consumers are just completely frustrated with companies today.
You're not wrong. Yeah, I mean, I think there is a frustration part here. It's a huge pain point, and I think it gets to a point where people oftentimes get so frustrated that they want to take action, sometimes legal action, and that's where our guest today comes in. I mean, it's a huge pain point for so many people out there that feel like they've gotten to a point where they need a lawyer. It's hard to find a good lawyer. They're expensive. And I think this is an area that when we think about agentic reasoning and what it can do, this is an area that's really ripe for disruption.
Exactly, which is why I was so excited. I know you were too, because we both saw Joshua Browder, who is the CEO of company Do Not Pay, speak last year at AI's 4. We're going to be back to this year. He just mentioned me, Rex. He's going to be there this year again too, so I'm looking forward to see him. He's also speaking at MMA CMO Summit, a various conversation about what CMOs need to do, and that's what we're going to get in today. So, with that, I want to give a big, decoding AI for marketers, a welcome to Josh Browder.
Thanks so much for having me, Greg and Rex. It's an honor to be here.
Well, we're excited to get into how your technology works.
So Do Not Pay is an AI consumer champion, and our mission is to give the most powerful technology back to the people. I started the company 8 years ago because I was a terrible driver and got a lot of parking tickets, and that was the first use case.
How many, Josh? How many parking tickets?
I think I got over 30 tickets. And as you can tell from my accent, I'm British. So I'll use the excuse the Americans drive on the other side of the road.
Couldn't have been just
I'm a terrible driver. And I was racking up these tickets at Stanford and San Francisco. And I realized something remarkable in life, which is if you know the right things to say, you can actually save a lot of money. And I really just did it for 10 of my friends. And I created the website. And it went viral on Reddit. And I went from 10 users to 50,000 users within the first week. And this made me realize that the idea of helping people with technology is bigger than just tickets. And so fast forward almost 10 years now, and we have over 100 areas that we help people with consumer rights. So canceling subscriptions, negotiating bills, getting refunds, all of the areas where the big companies know that you don't have the time to negotiate on hold for 2 hours to save $10. That's the perfect job for AI and software.
I love it. I love it. When did you first kind of realize that there was an opportunity to really build tech to support this? Was it just in that early incarnation that you started to have friends ask you to do this, and it became so? It feels like a hard. It feels like why hasn't somebody done it? It felt like kind of a hard problem to solve. No.
That's exactly right. So when it started, it wasn't really AI. It was more of a template business where you chose the defense for your parking ticket and it would match you with a template, fill out the letter and send it to the government. But over time, I realized that there's only so much you can do with a template, and OpenAI's GPT-3, GPT-4, and now GPT-4o came out, and that really leveled up what we could do by 10x.
So, from a technical standpoint, this is important for the listeners to hear what you just said. You started with a template business, and in a way, if you already have a defined workflow, it makes it a lot easier to plug in AI and begin to use agents. So, you already started with a great place. Tell me a little bit about your leap into using agents and how you began to deal with the issues of a hallucination, and how do you make sure that the types of answers that you get and the type of reasoning are bounded in a way that that you're confident that people will get good outcomes.
So everything really changed when GPT-3 came out, and GPT-3 was finally good enough to hold a conversation online. And so we asked ourselves at the Do Not Pay team, what are some things that we can do and automate that require you to hold a conversation? And I hate to say it, but negotiating with customer service to cancel a subscription was the first and number one use case. So some magazines make you actually chat with an agent online to cancel a subscription, and we built robots that did that. And that was really helpful. We're now canceling thousands of subscriptions every week. But GPT-3 hallucinated a huge amount, and it would mix up names of people. The agent on the other end would say, okay, I'll give you $10 off, and it would accept that offer, even though I would consider it a lowball offer. And so everything really changed when GPT-4 came out, which reasoned 5 times better. And at that point, we deployed our robots to do AI bill negotiation. So if you imagine a robot logging into someone's Comcast account and starting chatting with the agent to lower their bill. And what's interesting is these big companies use AI and we use AI, and so the two AIs are negotiating to battle it out. But the AI still lies to get what it wants, and so we've had to build guardrails to protect ourselves and protect our customers.
Tell us an example of where you caught the AI lying and what you need to do to guardrail that.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you a very recent example that just happened yesterday, actually. So fast forward, so GPT-4 is really good, but it takes too long to respond. It takes about 3 seconds to generate a response. And that's okay for online chat because you imagine a human typing, it's an acceptable delay. But it's not really good for holding a phone conversation. So about 2 months ago, OpenAI released the model GPT-4o, and that decreased the time to response by 3x. So instead of taking 3 seconds, it now takes 1 second to generate a response. And it's finally quick enough to hold a phone conversation. And so we decided to deploy our army of robots on the phones. And just yesterday, we deployed it to handle a phone negotiation for a cell phone bill. And we have a whole legal team and compliance that really make sure our products are compliant and don't break any laws. And they told us, make sure that AI introduces themselves as an agent or an assistant, not impersonating someone's voice, because that's a new area of regulation. So the AI phoned up this cell phone company, I won't say which one, and it said, hello, I'm Abraham. Abraham is a member of the Do Not Pay team. I'm Abraham's assistant, representing him to get this negotiation done. And the cell phone company said, okay, but what's your name? And the AI said, no, I'm the assistant. And the phone company said, no, I understand you're the assistant, but you have a name. I'm not authorized to share my name, I'm just the assistant. And this went back and forth like 6 times. It's a hilarious video. I wish I could show you guys it. And I think when we're speaking at the conference, I'll play this.
I love
it. And finally, after 5 back and forths, we were just hoping the AI did something to get out of this mess. It said, oh, okay, I guess you can call me Alex. And then that overcame the roadblock. So the AI couldn't even make up a name for itself. So it does struggle with these things, but eventually it overcomes them.
When you want it to lie, you can't get it to lie, then it lies all the time when you don't want it to lie. I don't know.
Yeah. And going back to Comcast, it will say things like, I've had 5 internet outages in the past week to get a refund or a discount. And that might be successful, but it's not good for liability.
Got it. So when you're doing um, the training of these AIs and thinking about the agent, uh, are you training it on a set of known strategies that you think to get rebates, or are people giving you a set of facts and then it's using it like a retrieval augmented generation? Like the person says, I want my rebate in your form because I've had these outages or I've had these issues, and they've checked a few boxes or filled in some information, and the agent uses that information to be authentic to that person's request. Or how have you architected this? And are you using yeah, basically how have you architected this, the Lang chain, if you will, or the prompt chain?
So it's really about giving it as much helpful information as possible. So on the outage front, we're like scanning for outages in the area. On the customer front, if the customer has been a customer for 10 years, that's a fact that we're definitely passing through. And we're arming it with as much detail as possible to make its case. And then in terms of the prompt, we say always be polite but firm. So a lot of the stuff with customer service is actually getting them to like you. So we're trying to make the AI be likable, but also knowing its rights and arming it with as many facts as possible. One thing that we put in the prompt, which was really crucial in the early days, was stick to the truth, because going back to lying, you actually have to tell it to stick to the truth. And Greg mentioned, I think earlier, we actually have another machine learning model that's kind of guardrailing the output before it gets sent. And so we have one AI watching another AI to talk to the company, which is sometimes using AI itself. So that's really the future of these negotiations.
Hey, Josh, how many companies do you think are actually, when I call in, how many of those are AI conversations? Do you have any sense of that? Can you tell? What percentage, if you were to even guess? I don't know.
Well, I think 100% of companies are using AI or some decision tree at the beginning. Like you call up United and it's like press 2 for this.
Yeah.
That is almost
Yeah.
robot you're talking to at the beginning. I think there's so many legal worries with these big companies that they can't
Okay.
have AI handle the conversation.
Yeah.
But they definitely will within the next 12 months.
Yeah, is that
Well,
right?
and then
That's what you-
we had on our show earlier a CIO that was doing this for call centers, but they had a human in the loop. So the AI was summarizing the conversation, and I think increasingly you'll see AIs making the recommendation, even if it's a human. But the voices are so good with the 11 Labs and some of the others that have just developed wonderful synthetic voices that it really does become indistinguishable. So we get to this world of agents talking to agents, and as you mentioned before, in your own network of agents, you've got agents supervising agents. What do you think is is there a world in which the information comes back to the human in a different form than basically a world where agents are interacting with agents and we're sitting back and only getting information that we need? Talk to me a little bit about what you think is going to happen in the next 24 months.
Well, AI is extremely useful and large language models are a very impressive technology, but they're useless unless you connect it to the real world. And as human beings and corporations, we've created so many processes to get things done that the agents actually have to go back to the Stone Ages to actually get anything done. So I've seen examples at Do Not Pay where the AI is actually communicating with companies and perhaps even other agents via fax. So the AI will generate a fax, send off a fax, and I imagine this company is probably scanning the fax and interpreting it using some system or AI. So connecting AI to the Stone Ages will be the biggest integration challenge within the next 24 months. And we see this with the mail, where we have our AI generate letters and actually connect to the US Postal Service, even with phone calls. And so it's almost such a shame that there hasn't been a technical standard for these agents to communicate with each other, and I wish there would be. But
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, the
We need
incentives aren't aligned.
like XML with agent version, right? That's like, or JSON, you'd think that even just adopting something like that would be easy. But so just to play this back, what you're saying is right now, because there isn't an interface for agents to communicate with agents, the agents either are using chat and text, which is being interpreted. Okay, we get that in chat box. But in a lot of cases, you actually have to create a physical letter, have an automated machine generate that letter, produce it. have somebody hand carry that in, mail them out, and you probably have a big stack of these, or they have to generate a fax, which isn't received at the other end. Whether it's the letter being received by the marketer or the fax, someone has to read that letter or that fax, which again, probably not a person, but probably a robot, reads it, does optical character recognition, reprocesses it in back to their agent just to communicate. That's the world we're in right now because we don't have a standard for these things talking.
That's right. And the legal system is so far behind that in some countries, not in the US, there's still telegrams. Millions of telegrams are sent every year. So I imagine that one day the AI will actually have to use telegrams as well. So that's a fun fact.
Hey, Josh, excuse my ignorance. I'm the non-technical guy here, but did you have to build all that connection to some engine to be able to send a U.S. postal mail? Did you have to build and you're operating in many countries too, so it's not just U.S. postal, and you had to build a fax connection technology, or are you just APIing into something else, or does you made that almost sound like the AI had figured it out on its own, which made me kind of nervous. That's not the case, is it?
No. So we're building it with APIs.
Okay.
I think, Rex, you mentioned someone was carrying letters. That's not me. I'm just a coding guy in a dark room. But what the amazing thing about software is there's so many APIs you can plug into, and even with AI, I don't have a machine learning PhD. I'm obviously computer science background, but you can use the same powerful technology that Google and Apple and Microsoft are using just to make your version of the world. And I think that's really what's unique about this cycle of technology. You can plug into all of these things. You don't have to have a unique background to build something really powerful.
Hey, Josh, I'm getting a sense too that, and I don't know if you have this kind of data off the top of your head, but so listen, it started out fighting parking tickets. There's a series of other things around municipalities that you operate with certain government. And then there's a lot of some of this subscription cancellation. So that's, person to corporate, I don't know if there's any other entities that you actually connect with, but if you were to say, like, how much of what's happening in Do Not Pay now is to parking ticket municipality activities versus corporations and how's that changed over the last year or two that you guys been building this out?
The vast majority of our use cases is helping people save time with fighting these big companies.
Okay.
And I think we were talking earlier about why isn't there a technical standard and why isn't the world just an amazing place? Yeah. And I think there's two types of AI agents. There's positive sum agents. So a positive sum agent is where you benefit and the big company benefits. An example of that could be booking a flight with AI. With Expedia. You get your flight and Expedia gets the revenue from your ticket. So everyone wins. Yep. But then there's adversarial agents where your interests don't align with the people on the other side. And there's an open question, why doesn't a company build an agent to cancel their own subscriptions? And I think the answer is obvious, because they'll cost them money. Yeah. So I think that's why this is so needed, and we've had to build this where other companies haven't.
And of course, they're going to make it as hard for you to interact with them as possible, which is why you have to fax or a mail or whatever, because it's in their interest to create as much friction as possible. But I'm really interested in, and especially as I think about my wife, who really has, I would say, a slightly vigilante
she does.
flair.
I've met her.
She's a wonderful woman, but
she's great.
When she sees a spammer or something that's unjust and people ripping people off, that makes her mad, and she wants to get back at them. So I know she will be interested customer here for what you've been doing with adversarial agents to fight the scammers that are using AI to try to attack people. I remember you mentioned that last year, and I'm hoping you can talk a little bit and update us on what you have available. Because here's the scary part. The first $1 billion AI generated company is likely to be somebody who's trying to defraud others using AI. Mm-hmm. And we already know there's a lot of that happening. You seem like you could be a consumer protection and a way of fighting back on some of the people that are using AI for ill.
Yeah, so we were watching the news just like everyone else, and the first people to use powerful new technology is typically criminals, and then the second people is big corporations. Yeah. And one of the biggest problems with AI is these criminals are using fake voices to scam people with robocalls. And this is really a problem we have experience fighting back with because there's this amazing law called the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, mm-hmm. which allows people to get up to $1,500 whenever they get a commercial spam call. But it's really difficult to get this compensation because when someone is trying to sell you something, you imagine they're selling you like a cruise or something. They use fake names and fake numbers, and they don't tell you who they really are. And so even outside of AI, we decided to build a trap to get them. And the way the trap works is it's a virtual credit card sponsored by Do Not Pay. It's not linked to you or your bank account or your credit. And when they try and sell you something, you can say, I'm very interested. Here's my credit card. And then when they try and run the credit card, of course it declines. But through the payment network, it gets their business name, business address, all of the details you need to track them down and write them a letter and get this money under the law. And it's a difficult process and it takes a lot of time. But there's this one guy in New Jersey, and he's actually made it his full-time job suing robocallers using this technology. And he even bought a new roof for his house with all the money he was making with these scammers. I should say it only works for like semi-legitimate businesses in the United States. If the scammers are in India or something, then they're beyond the reach of this, but it's still a powerful tool to fight back.
Wow,
Are you planning on anything else because I know some of the ones, take the ones that are coming from the criminals coming from North Korea or the ones that are operating these sweatshops in India, where some of the thing is just to keep them on the line for as long as possible and wear out their time. I mean, you've got AI agents are conversational and so forth. Are you planning on anything exciting, interesting things that we can do with AI agent?
Are you in the wear out business, right?
That's right.
So our business really works on like there being some sort of justice, whether that's legal justice or customer service.
Yeah.
But we on the policy side, I really think these big telephone companies and also the AI model companies have to be responsible if their models are being used for evil. There's a lot of talk right now about AI regulation, and I think regulation hurts startups, and so it's generally a bad idea. But someone has to be responsible for these criminals scamming people.
Yeah, it's hard when you can download and have a locally run, large language model, and you've got things like Grok and Meta and so forth that have Llama downloadable versions that don't have to go through any visibility. What do you think? What do you think is the secure solution of where we ought to be going with making a safer world with AI, given that we are going to have all of these agents? In the last chapter of my book, we were promoting having some type of AI identity. And so that way, if APIs or things are interacting, you had to share your identity. And that way you could turn off the access to it. But I'm not sure that goes far enough or is comprehensive. What's your thought on the topic?
I think it's really two things. My mission is to fight fire with fire, and what's the best way to stop evil AI is good AI. So maybe there should be rules where on the iPhone, if you get a call and it can tell it's an AI voice, it should put up a big warning saying, don't send any money, this is an AI voice, or check, maybe this is not who you think it is. And then the second thing is really about consumer education. It's way too easy to send your life savings to someone. There should just be a pop-up that warns people about the dangers of technology and helps especially older people from being scammed.
Yeah. Hey, Josh, let me just sort of check in with a company here for a moment. So you started a company how many years ago now? 9, 10, something?
I incorporated in 2016, but I was working on it before that.
Okay, good. And you, as you mentioned earlier, you have a CS degree out of Stanford. So, congratulations on...
I didn't graduate.
Oh, you didn't? No, you went right to do this. Okay,
Yeah.
Great. Love it. And how many employees are within the company today? What are you at?
So we have 14 people working at the company, and only 7 of those are expensive, and we have over 250,000 subscribers. So
Wow.
we joke internally that every person is responsible for 10,000 people. And that's really the scalability of a software business.
That's really crazy. And by the way, if I can say, I think it's public information, right? You have a $200 million plus valuation on the company, right? Yeah, I mean,
We're very lucky, yeah.
Yeah, this is not just a hobby. This is a real thing that you built here with some scale. How many? Give some sense too, maybe just for the listeners. How many parking tickets are being resolved? Just give a sense of scale. Some of the stats around the things that you're interacting now to help consumers, just so they know.
We've resolved millions of cases for people, and we continue to do so. Last month was our best month. So Unfortunately, I like to think of Do Not Pay as an ETF on the world's problems, and the problems are only going up.
Yeah, okay, got it. But literally 14 people handling millions of requests. And I think I saw somewhere too that on the parking tickets, you're 65% successful, something like that, which is feels to me very high.
Yeah, so and it's constantly changing. We have some things that is 100% successful. So like canceling a gym membership, where it's not about negotiation, but it's about jumping through the hoop. And I would say parking tickets is our least successful product, and it varies.
Right,
Well,
right. But
because you
some,
might have actually parked wrong, and it might be your fault. So it's interesting, the difference between, I think your point is really good, which is subscriptions are, yeah, I mean, you should be able to cancel. That's your right. Parking tickets are a question of, did you do it? Did you not do it? And then how much friction are you creating? How do you, on something like the parking ticket one, are you training your AI to learn what is the most successful strategy? So you almost have your gradient descent working to see how do we get that rate from 65 to 70%? And how do you think about that in terms of the kind of the moral and ethic difference between, say, the subscription part and sort of when you get into the legal area where it's not so cut and dry?
So we've really walked back our mission of legal services. I think that the legal industry is really broken, and someone has to fix it. But we really see our role as consumer rights and fighting for things that a lawyer wouldn't even dream of getting out of bed for. So with parking tickets, we allow our users to take a photo of the ticket, and the machine learning model is identifying areas where evidence on the ticket itself is missing. So things like that. And also if a consumer can upload photos of like this parking bay and stuff, but we're also pulling that from Google Street View. But actually, parking tickets out of all our products probably has the least amount of AI because it's really like, also in San Francisco, like we have so many self-driving cars, we don't see parking tickets really as the future of the company.
oh, that's funny. That's very funny. So you're shifting your business. Where do you think the big future of what you do is, by the way? What should we, and think about it here from a corporate perspective, like what should these consumer companies are going to be in the audience next week? Who should be, I don't know, most nervous. I'm not trying to position it that way, but who should know that, boy, this is a real area of consumer frustration that we're seeing, that Do Not Pay is seeing, that we really think needs to be addressed better. And we're turning our technology in that direction. What do you think?
Some companies make a lot of money and a lot of revenue from delivering delightful experiences to consumers, and I think they don't have to worry. But I think some companies are relying on dark patterns where someone doesn't have to someone has to jump through all these hoops, and it's almost a business model where they're relying on someone not to submit their claim or not to ask change to a cheaper product that a competitor is doing. And AI is going to make the world so efficient where we have our AI robots negotiating, and you wake up one day and the AI says, I've switched you to a cheaper plan that's better while you were sleeping, and you've saved $50. So I think companies that are relying on inefficiencies to make money should lose sleep at night and make their businesses more on delighting customers.
And good for you for calling them to task. I mean, we say we're consumer centric and customer centric, and a business is supposed to be serving the customer. But you're right. A lot of times they can become so oriented around their own bottom line, they forget that the money they're taking is from a customer to deliver value. So I'm glad that you're pushing this area. I'd like to hear you talk more about the future part of leveling the playing field, because I think what I felt happened in the first wave of the internet was it didn't become a level playing field. Big companies got really powerful AI and technologies, machine learning initially. I just tried to book a flight, and my God, all the different ways they now can extract a little more value because I want a few more inches in my coach seat, or or I want to be able to check a bag or carry a bag or whatever. It's crazy. So tell me a little bit about increasing the power to the consumer. And what are the next big things that you think that you can really make a difference and tilt it back to more of a level playing field?
Yeah, and I would say my own example of AI discrimination is AI setting prices. Not many people know this, but there's been some lawsuit allegations where if you're on 1% battery, the ride sharing companies AI will charge you more money because they know you're desperate to get a ride. So AI is already being used to
So they can read that. They
cheat
can read that
people.
on your phone.
They can, yes. And it's really a shame. And it's really meant for app efficiency so that developers cannot use too much app battery life. But whenever there's information, it's being used to feed these AIs and get money.
Okay.
Yeah. In any case, one thing I'm really excited about is AI to lower medical bills. There's an amazing new law. It's called the No Surprises Act, and it allows people to negotiate their bills, and it forces hospitals to publish their prices. But hospitals they've taken the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law. So they've published their prices on these obscure PDFs with thousands of rows. And the way you can get your bill down is you say, well, the hospital down the street is charging less for the procedure that you're charging.
Right.
And that's a great job for AI. It can compare these thousands of different tables and different spreadsheets and get you a really good price. So that's my mission and what we're working on right now at Do Not Pay.
Wow.
Well, I love that. That's a perfect use
crazy.
of, because you get these dense PDFs, but that's no problem. In fact, Vasilis, who works for Greg, sent me this crazy long report and said, oh, it was really dense. I just had AI read it, and 3 prompts later, I had the summary of what I needed out of it. But you're making that really accessible to so many people to make it really, really easy to use. I congratulate you on your success and want to see you continue to build. I'd like to hear what you think is most overhyped and where you think some of the weaknesses and where we've gotten too excited about AI and that what it, really, we need to take a step back and say, no, it really can't do that yet.
So there's a lot of talk in Silicon Valley about AGI, artificial general intelligence, which leads to images of like Terminator and all of this stuff. And I think that's very overhyped.
Well, there's ASI. There's ASI 2 now, Josh, apparently, right? Which is artificial superintelligence, right? I don't know. So maybe just as silly as AGI.
Yeah, and from an architecture perspective, I don't see it right now. So the way these models work is it's a very advanced statistical model, and ChatGPT-4 is just predicting what will be the next word that comes next. And that's really useful for certain things, including what I'm doing with negotiating bills. But it doesn't really reason like a human. So, for example, you can ask it to add up a few numbers, and even today, with over $1 trillion of capital expenditure, it will still get the answer wrong because it doesn't reason the same way we do. And so much money is being thrown at the space that they will definitely achieve a breakthrough, but it's not like it's around the corner where the model, they just need to release GPT-5 and then we're all going to be replaced by Terminator robots. So that's where it's overhyped.
What are you most excited about, though, that might come next, that might really help sort of the kinds of things that you're doing? Is there something you think is on the horizon that people should be aware of and keep an eye out for?
So there were 2 problems that we're really facing as a company with using these models. The first is latency, so how long the AI takes to respond, and they've just solved that, and it continues to get faster. And then the second is what in the tech world we call the context window. So if you're trying to build something useful with AI, there's really 2 ways to do it. The first is you have lots of dumb AIs, and it's like a chain of ants lifting an apple, and they're all working together, and that's what we do. And then the second way is you have one really smart, really strong ant trying to lift the apple by itself, and that's an AI with a context window. And the best models, the context window is like how much they can process with one task has been increasing. I think the highest right now, I'm going to embarrass myself, but I think it's 1 million tokens with Gemini. But I think it should be much higher, and that's really where things get more sophisticated, where a single AI with a single task can digest a lot more information.
And forgive me if I'm wrong, Josh, is that actually being able to really kind of keep the thread of a conversation that it's had both at the moment and then in the past is really what's happening there, right? Is that what that is, if I understand context window? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Rex asked me how we're actually doing these disputes and actually training the models, and it allows you to feed more into what's going on. And rather than having to handle the information at the model level where you're making the model better, you can actually make it better for an individual task. and almost every task you could feed in every law once the context windows get bigger, and so it makes it more useful.
Hey, Josh, there seem to be so many problems out there. How come not more than 14 people? Why not double, triple, quadruple the team? You certainly can raise money. You certainly have a viable business model. I don't know. I'm not challenging it. I'm just curious.
I think we need you on the board, Greg, and we need to increase.
Well,
We're hiring a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, Josh. Actually, by the way, there actually is some research out there that when companies put marketers, CMOs often, marketers on boards, the company growth for those, the growth for those companies is 3% higher. Because most people sit in the boardroom are either venture people or sometimes venture, which has an orientation to growth, but they're either finance people or they're legal people, and they're just risk averse. And so, yeah, marketers tend to be sort of growth minded. So it's funny you sort of call that out. Wow.
Yes.
It really, Josh, it really is super impressive. I saw the thing last year. I was totally enamored. I've been paying attention. I am a customer and stuff. I haven't really figured out how to really dig in. The money's not sort of big enough for me to spend a lot of time, but I'm going to continue to work on it because I have wondered if somebody could actually sort of earn a minimal income of some kind just by sort of using some of what you have.
Yeah, I would recommend you submit your last in-flight Wi-Fi receipt.
Yes, I saw that. That is so annoying.
Just do that. I'm confident it works like 99+% of the time with those sorts of refunds. So you should try it.
I heard that. I love it. Okay, Rex, anything else we should extract from Josh today, or?
Well, I would like to ask one more meaty question, and then we'll wrap up. But I think that the fact that you are able to be so successful and grow with such a small number of people really hits on another interesting question about AI, which is your thoughts on how we ought to be taxing and thinking about this part, because our tax system was based upon this idea that companies hired people paid income tax, and the company paid the payroll tax, and that sort of, as companies got bigger, there was more of that tax base. But when you get to this place where a company creates a tremendous amount of value, but with very, very few people, it sort of changes that dynamic. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about, I think the general belief is that these companies are going to become, larger revenue-wise and smaller people-wise, because we can't have agents help with our own work internally. And I'm certainly on that path and doing that. I'm just curious if you think, what's the right way we ought to think about how companies like yours and these agent-based companies, how we ought to think about how they pay back to society, if you will.
Yeah, I'll talk about ourselves and then my bigger views. Do Not Pay is very lucky. We're extremely profitable, and we actually give dividends back to our shareholders, which is fairly unique for Silicon Valley.
Very.
And
very unique.
The reason we've been able to do that is we've been inspired by automating as much as possible with technology and software. And there's companies like Klarna, which is a huge tens of billions of dollar buy now, pay later company that recently automated 2/3 of their customer service workflow with AI. So on the company side, it's great because you can save a lot of money and make things very efficient. To your point about what workers will do, I'm a blind technology optimist, and I always think that new technology will always create exciting new roles for people.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
20 years ago, no one could have ever imagined there would be Instagram influencers or people who work in the online economy in the ways that they do today. And similarly with AI, new roles are being created like prompt engineers and roles to fine-tune the data and clean it up so that AI gets it in a good format. And humans are so creative that I'm very positive that exciting things will come out of it. I do think that the government and companies need to take a responsibility to retrain people and make sure that people don't get stuck in this transition.
Yeah, I think many people
appreciate that perspective.
Yeah, I think that's
so.
What many
Greg, I think
is wrong in the country. But
Sorry.
Go ahead, Rex. Yeah, you finish up.
Oh, I was just going to say, well, first of all, I really appreciate that the thoughtful answer. I think that's going to be one of the things we're going to have to figure out as we go forward. And I really appreciate you coming on the show. You've got such a fascinating business, really great use of AI, and I think that's it for this episode of Decoding AI for Marketing. I'm Rex Briggs.
Josh.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rex. You wrap up. Sorry. Go. Sorry.
Oh, I just did. It's now your turn.
We didn't hear. Okay, I didn't say it again. I didn't hear it. Just do that one more time. I'm Rex Briggs.
I'm Rex Briggs.
And this is Greg Stewart. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Josh.
Be sure to catch all our episodes, plus subscribe, follow, rate, and review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. You can get transcripts, and for more information, visit our website, decodingaiformarketing.com, and learn more about MMA and membership options. Go to MMAglobal.com. Thanks for listening.